Oh, great. Okay, so Linda, we'll just go right into our first question is how did you get started with this farm?
Well, it sounds very strange to say this, but with being a career flight attendant, I had never heard of an alpaca. I had no idea, and this was, quite a few years ago. But it was my mom, after my dad passed away, she decided it's time to do something different. So she was quite a go-getter, and she saw this advertisement for a seminar with alpacas, and I had no idea what I was in for at all. I didn't know whether they were a bird or what they were. It sounds very strange, but that's where I was. And we lived in a subdivision, so I was not a farm girl at all. And anyway, we went to the seminar in Mansfield, Georgia, Desert Mountain Alpaca Ranch. And it was a wonderful full day seminar where we actually saw alpacas and learned about them and the whole 9 yards. And once I touched an alpaca, I was completely sold on their fiber. Their fiber was, oh, luxurious. And Janice, who's the owner of Desert Mountain Alpaca Ranch, she had at the time about 40 or 50 alpacas. So, they are pack animals, and it was just what I learned about them was phenomenal. And so I worked with my daughter on the farm for 2 years before I decided to start we were looking for farms, but I wanted to know what I was doing first of all. And
Yes.
that there are certain things one has to know, that they're very unique animals. And so after 2 years, I decided to purchase my first two alpacas. Normally you begin with girls, that's the normal thing to do, but I fell in love with two boys. And one of them is Apollo, the one you saw rolling on the ground. He is the sweetest boy. He's about 16 years old now, but I just fell in love with Apollo, and he has to greet me at the gate every morning before I walk, or when I walk in, and I have to kiss the side of his mouth. I mean,
Oh,
the side of his, so he is like a real sweet boy, and he is he's the head sire of the entire pack of herd of alpacas. And so we'll probably get more into their characters, but I just decided this was what I wanted to do. And I'd done a lot of traveling as a flight attendant, so I knew the farm life was going to be somewhat exclusively on the farm, but I was ready for that. I was ready in my life for that. And so the farm was my mother, my daughter, and myself. A few years later, my mom passed away, but she said it was some of the happiest years of her life being on the farm.
oh.
And so I literally knew nothing except about alpacas until I began working on Janice's farm for 2 years.
Okay, so you worked there first and then you purchased Apollo and RT is the other one.
That's right. And then after that, I purchased two females,
Okay.
and both of the females came with babies at their side.
Oh,
And so I had six alpacas for purchasing four. I had six. So it was a small farm, and it's still a small farm, but it's such an amazing experience. People ask me, "Don't you get tired of going there twice a day, more or 3 or 4 times a day, and in all kinds of weather, sleet, cold like tonight, but I don't. I just love their characters. And
oh,
so that's how we began. I knew very little except for what Janice taught me in those 2 years.
that's so cool. And then you purchased your farm and now how many alpacas do you have
Oh,
currently?
we currently have 8 alpacas.
8 alpacas. Okay.
Right. So Apollo has fathered 3 of them. So he's quite a stud, needless to say.
And you have a baby right now, Sky, correct?
We do. We have baby Sky. She was born in March. Um, Apollo snuck through a broken pet door between the two barns, and he mated with one of the females, which she didn't protest at all. She was quite happy. And baby Sky was born quite surprisingly in March of 2020. So it brought a bit of joy to the situation that we're going through now.
Oh,
You know,
that's so
in the
great.
world. Yes, so she's a
And I'll
sweet.
bring pictures up afterwards.
Yes.
And we can go through all the pictures.
All right.
Um, and you said Apollo did something unusual for a male, right? What did you say?
Oh, whenever he mates a female, he stays right next to them and hums in their ear for about an hour or more.
I think
So
that's so
he
cute.
is he is just wonderful. But he is the head sire, and he even though he's now 16 years old, the other alpacas let him eat first. He's definitely got the hierarchy, and his friend Eros. Funny enough, these were names I did not give them, but Eros supposedly means erotic love and all that, but the ladies can't stand him, so
Oh, poor guy.
they actually spit at him. So
Oh no.
he has not mated, and
Okay.
they won't allow him. But anyway, they all have needs, and Apollo is definitely the herd sire, and Eros protects him from. There is another alpaca that wants to take his place, but Eros will not let him even
Oh
close to
wow.
Apollo. So
That's so
they're
interesting.
very interesting creatures.
They
Yeah.
really are. And they're different personalities just from what you've been saying.
Oh,
It's so interesting.
um, and the advantage of having a small farm as opposed to a really large one, you get to know the characteristics of each alpaca. And so if they're ever so slightly off key, you know exactly there's
What's
something wrong and
going
you
on?
troubleshoot. Right. Hmm.
That's so cool. So, can you tell us the difference between alpacas and llamas? Because I think they get confused a lot of
They
times.
they do. The llama is. I mean, I'd heard of llamas when I hadn't heard of alpacas. So the llama is more familiar to people, and they you're right. They do often get mixed up. There is they're all from the same family, the camelid family. The camel being the largest of the camelids. Then the llama is the next largest, or smallest, what next step, and then the alpaca, and then there's the um, vicuña, and then there's another smaller one, and really their fiber is just the llama. The difference between the llama and the alpaca is that the alpaca they have more fiber, and their fiber is finer than the llama. But there are quite a few differences between the two. In fact, I was quite surprised at how many there were. Of course, the first one is the llama is bigger. It tends
Hmm.
to have a longer nose, and they, they they only shear, from what I understand. I haven't been around llamas as much, so I'm just basically what I've heard is that they shear a llama once every 2 years, and you shear an alpaca generally once a year.
Okay.
So that's one difference. The alpaca is about an average of 170 pounds, and a llama is about 400 pounds on average. And the alpaca is a pack animal, a herd animal, whereas the llama tends to be more independent. And they also use llamas for as pack animals, for carrying. Um, you often see a llama with a sort of a saddle on their back. So because they're bigger, you can actually uh, ride them, or you can use them to carry products. Whereas an alpaca, unless they're unusual, really prefer not to be ridden. They're just that much smaller. And the alpaca is, like I said, a herd animal. The llama is more independent, and the llama, the alpaca needs more protein in their diet, and
Oh,
the llama does not. So the alpaca needs that. So those are just the basic differences. I was quite surprised at how many differences there really were. I'm just going to make sure I haven't forgotten any. Oh, and the llama is used mainly for as a pack animal and also for meat.
Oh,
They are more of a meat. I don't know about in America, but in South America. But the alpaca is also used for meat, but I guess the llama produces a bit more than the alpaca does.
right.
So let's see what else. Oh, and the alpaca is more timid in nature, whereas the llama is more socialized and not as timid.
Okay,
So
very cool.
those are some of the differences. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. So what do they normally eat?
Well, the alpaca, because of its high protein diet, I feed the alpaca orchard alfalfa. Alfalfa is a very important part of their diet. And you've got to be somewhat careful with what you do feed the alpacas because they have a three-chambered stomach. And
Oh,
if that stomach gets interrupted, if the whole process gets interrupted from, one chamber to the next, um, they can go into have some medical issues. That it's not that they can't overcome them, but they can have medical issues. Like I do supplement a little bit with pellets, but I don't give them very many pellets with minerals in them and things of that nature. But they prefer lines of orchard alfalfa or orchard and not short because that can get caught in their digestive system. So that's their main diet. They do also eat grass, but they mainly eat the orchard alfalfa and they run for it. I mean they
really?
can be out in the field and as soon as they see me coming, they leave whatever they're doing and they're ready for that. But Apollo has to eat first.
Mm.
And then the other ones, and they will spit at each other if
Oh,
one of them interrupts the other one eating. Sometimes it's an air spit, but
oh.
sometimes if they've already eaten something, it's not an air spit. It actually becomes quite grotesquely green.
Can you
And
tell us about the
so,
spit? Oh,
so
could you? Yeah, could you tell us about the spit? Because I remember
yes,
kind
I
of interesting.
I've been intimately introduced to that. They don't spit at me because I am very hands-on, but if I happen to get in the crossfire of two males that might be spitting, it's not fun. It smells like bile.
Oh,
It's it's the most awful. It comes from deep down within their gut, and it's green and it numbs their lips when they spit. So I nearly called my mentor, and the first time I had never experienced that, even with her farm. And I almost called her, and no, I did call her, and I said, Janice Incan, which is one of our alpacas, his lips are hanging down, and literally the lower lip was hanging nearly 3 to 4 inches down. And I thought he was sick, being a newbie. It's different
mhm.
working on someone's farm as opposed to having your own. It's like you
Right.
don't want to miss anything. So, she said, oh, he's just had a spit fight with one of the other alpacas. And sure enough, after about 10 to 15 minutes, the numbness wore off and he got back to eating again. But
Oh,
it smells disgusting.
oh no.
Absolutely awful. And there was one time I was on my way to church, and one of my female alpacas, so I was dressed, fairly decently, not in my farm equipment, farm outfit. And one of my female alpacas got a piece of hay stuck in her eye. I noticed one eye was closed. And I knew better than to do this, but I was rather hurried for time. You're supposed to approach them rather, slowly because they are timid and they'll back away. But in this case, I was short for time and I had to um, grab her, which I know I should never have done. So I grabbed her and she literally tossed me into the hay trough.
Oh no.
Here I was, dressed fairly, like I said, fairly decently and covered in spit. She spat in my face and my glasses were covered in spit. But I did manage to get the hay out of her eye. But meanwhile, and someone at church, when he found out I was an alpaca farmer, he said, "You don't look like an alpaca farmer." And I said, "Well, you should have seen me about an hour ago. You would have definitely, yeah, you would have seen I was." I had
Oh, that's so funny.
anyway. They're lovely creatures. They really are, but they're extremely strong. They're deceivingly strong, actually.
Yes. So when does their diet affect their, I guess, fiber?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Got to be very careful with the. It's like a tree. You know how when you see a tree that's been diseased, you see the rings might get an interruption in them and all that, but it's the same type of concept that you'll see a breakage in their fiber is a bit weaker. So if they get some kind of an infection or if they're very stressed, their fiber will be affected as well. And also, one of the important components of the alpaca diet is the kind of water they drink. And if the water is high in iron, which we have well water, so I have to have it tested from time to time. And if it's high in iron, it can actually cause some blockage in their digestive system. So you just got to be very careful that they eat well, that they're able, that you give them a high quality diet, and also make sure their water is good as well.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yes.
I think we have a question. Sorry, just gonna pull that up. Okay, so Bradley asked, you mentioned alpaca hierarchy earlier and that another alpaca was trying to challenge Apollo. Is the alpaca hierarchy based on age or something else? And is Eros's role as Apollo's guardian also part of the hierarchy or just a facet of his personality?
I think it's a combination, actually, Bradley. It's a combination of the fact that Apollo is the oldest alpaca there. He has an extremely confident, calm disposition. He is an example of a true leader. He doesn't get irritated at anything. He does not kick unless he's challenged by another alpaca. But it is basically almost a personality trait, actually. And I do feel that the component of age is in there as well. And Eros and Apollo are the two oldest of all the male alpacas. So it is, and I'm sure there are more components that I don't really know about that are involved with that. But in my case, on my farm, it's definitely the age. But also, I think it's the fact that he is the top breeder. He's always been the one. He's fathered in his lifetime probably about 12 babies.
Wow.
And Eros has been privy to that information, by watching, because whenever I take them off the farm, Apollo and RT, the other one, they always sniff their privates to see if they've been taken for breeding, which they have not, but they want to make sure that they haven't been, left out, so to speak.
That's so interesting.
So honestly, I think really it's a combination, Bradley, and maybe every farm is a little different, but in mine, it's those components: age and mating, and just calm disposition. And the way he walks very proudly. Even the shearers, whenever Apollo gets shorn, uh, they say that he's a very confident alpaca, and he's very watchful. And he whenever he gets shorn, most of the alpacas just get up and run away because they can't stand being shorn. But Apollo will stand up and as if to say, "Oh, look at me! Don't I look good?" So he's just got a different disposition about him. Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, he said, that's awesome. Thank you, Linda.
My pleasure.
So just a question on age. How long do alpacas live for? Are they?
They live to be about 20 years old.
Oh,
Some may live a little longer, some a little shorter, but about 20 is the average age.
okay. That's so interesting.
Yes.
And so they get sheared once a year, right?
Once a
How,
year.
how does that work? You like outsource that or?
Yes. Some people do it themselves, and I think they're very brave. But I actually use a shearer that comes from Montana, and he starts off in Florida, and works his way sort of temperature-wise through Georgia, Alabama, then up to New England. Then he crosses over to Colorado, the Midwest, goes to California, and then goes on to Australia.
Oh, wow.
So he's got clients that even, in fact, he recently did a 24-hour fundraising shearing where, people were paying him for how many alpacas he could shear in 24 hours.
Ah,
He was doing a fundraising, and it was very successful. But this particular shearer, he does buffalo, and he does sheep, I do believe. But his main thing is alpacas and llamas.
that is so cool.
But it's quite an experience if you want to know what shearing is like. There are a few different methods of shearing, but it's a very messy, loud, high tension experience. And in my case, there are different ways of doing it, but in my case, this shearer, it's a team of shearers. There's usually about 2 or 3, actually more like 2. What you do is you lay the alpaca, which is quite a little fight, on its side, and then put loops around each of its feet and attach it to the barn. And then they sort of stretch the alpaca out. And that way the shearer can get a very clean cut. And they start off, taking off the blanket, which is the, on its back. That's the part that's spinners, and, knitters. That's the part of the alpaca that's turned into yarn. And it's the finest part of the alpaca. And then, so they take off the blanket in one big, beautiful piece. I wrap that up, because that is very precious, very beautiful fiber. And then they do the leg and neck, which I collect and bag that as well. But the alpacas are stretched out, and they scream, and they spit, and we have one that pees all over the mats. That's an Indian that wants to be the leader, and you can see now it's not. But anyway, it's a very messy ordeal, and they will try to bite the ankles of the shearers, but they use very, very sharp razors, electric razors, to shear the fiber, and it only takes about 5 minutes.
Wow.
But it's sheer panic for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the birds will collect up the unused fiber and line their nests with the beautiful alpaca fiber.
Oh,
So it's multi-purpose.
that is so cool. Yes.
Yes.
So what products do you make out of?
Me personally,
Yes.
yes. I do a little different. I hate to admit, I'm learning how to knit. So I'm quite a knitting 101, which ends up getting pulled out most of the time and then re-knitting because I end up with double stitches, and I'm learning. But my main products is felting. I like to felt the fiber, and I make more products for, because my farm is called Lions Creek Farm, but the business is called Lions Creek Pharmaceuticals, which is FARM, pharmaceuticals. So my products are more for healthy living. I do dryer balls, which are wonderful. The alpaca is the second most durable fiber in the world, natural fiber in the world, other than mohair. And mohair is number 1 from the Angora goat, and alpaca is next. So these dryer balls, they're chemical free. They cut down your drying time by 25%. They have a wicking. They wick the moisture from the clothing. That's the natural component of alpaca fiber. And I've had mine for years. They get smaller and they get a bit rough looking, but you just clip off any extra pieces that stick out, and you can keep them tumbling in your dryer. I make them in packages of 4, and you put all 4 of them into the dryer, and they do a fabulous job. Takes out static cling without any chemicals whatsoever. And people are amazed at how beautiful they are. And that's not just mine. Any alpaca dryer ball is worth its weight in gold. And it lasts a long, long time. And I also make felted cat toys. and which are really popular. And I do actually sell the raw fiber so that people can put them in bird nests during spring if there is a bird nesting material. I also do sell the raw fiber, the blanket, to spinners. They will sometimes come to the farm and buy, say, 1 or 2 pounds of blanket right off the animal as it's being shorn. And then but one of my top products is I sell the manure, which is not exactly a knitting item, but is part of the alpaca farm. But it's registered with the Georgia Department of Agriculture, and it is a fabulous product for your garden, for your vegetables, for your flowers, anything. My neighbor owns a commercial flower farm, and she said in all her years of growing flowers, the flowers have never looked so beautiful. And the nice thing about alpaca is you can put it directly onto your garden. It's because it's been so, normally you compost for a year or 90 days or whatever it might be. Alpaca, if you're just using it for your personal use, not commercially, like as long as you're not selling the vegetables the vegetables, you don't have to compost it. You can put it directly onto your garden. What I would recommend is that the urine has evaporated, because the urine will burn the plant. But if you use just regular the alpaca beans, because they look like beans, it will not burn your plant whatsoever. If you're going to grow root vegetables, I would recommend composting it for 90 days. But other than that, you don't need to compost it. And it increases the organic matter in your soil. So this Georgia clay that tends to be quite heavy, if you put 1/3 alpaca manure with 2/3 Georgia clay, over time the microbes will develop, and you'll have the most incredibly healthy soil. And I normally would recommend adding it's an amendment, not a fertilizer, an amendment. I would recommend adding it about twice a year, in the spring and in the fall.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and you can dig it in, or you can top dress, either one, whichever you prefer. So, but as far as the alpaca products that I make, I'm also making stress balls for the COVID, and those are rather successful as well, because people are wanting to get back to nature, especially during this time that we're going through. So the stress balls have been very popular. I just made a lot of stress balls for a wedding.
Oh, that's so nice.
And so it's a wonderful, you find your niche, really. And some people are spinners, some people are knitters, crocheters. It's such a the alpaca offers so much for so many people.
That's so awesome. And actually, I'm going to pull up our presentation, but I'll still ask you questions. And if we have any more questions, we can ask that. All about alpacas. So I had to put your little logo, and that's alpaca, right, Linda? Do you see?
Yes, that is.
I mean, that's Apollo.
Apollo the alpaca. Yes, that's Apollo. He's my boy, and we are part of Georgia Grown as well. They're so supportive of what we do.
That's so great. And this is the farm.
Mm-hmm. That's the barn. Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And do they all sleep in there?
Yes, they do.
At night. Okay.
Some people have doors that close, like a horse barn.
Mm-hmm.
But alpacas are so stoic, and they really don't need. They just need a shelter. But right now, I went to feed them right before this program, and it's cold out there, and it's wet, and they're just fine. They're just fine. I'm thinking, whoo, can't wait to get back in. It's cold, but they just need a shelter. And on the picture of the not the one on the right where you see the rough sawn lumber, but the other one, the left side, is where I keep the girls.
Okay.
They have a slightly nicer barn, and with the babies, and then the part on the right is where I keep the boys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but they're fine. Mm-hmm.
And how do they do in Georgia summers? Because you said they like the cold, so.
Yes, they're originally from the high Andes Mountains.
Oh.
they travel between, 14,000 to up to, they've even found them in Machu Picchu
Oh,
at 19,000 feet. So
wow.
they do get heat stress. That is the one thing. But generally speaking, we shear them in April, as late as possible in April, and
Mm-hmm.
then during the hot summer in August, September, and even in July if it's hot. If the temperature gets above 90, say 91 or more,
Mm-hmm.
I hose them down with very cold water, not on their blanket area. I just hose their bellies and legs.
Underneath, yeah.
Yeah,
Pull
to
it
keep
down.
them cool. And they all line up. They're very organized, and they all line up for their hosing down. And while I'm on the subject of organizing, they all, when one starts to go, to use the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
next one lines up and does it in exactly the same spot. And they all line up and they smell it and then they go. And so we only have about 3 poop piles. They don't go anywhere. So it's quite easy to collect their belongings.
They're cute. Oh.
Yes, they're very sweet animals. And in the pictures, I did
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful alpaca. It was an education. I like educational seminars because
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's so much to learn about these creatures. And I did one for a vacation Bible study at a church, and that was so successful. The children, there were about 200 children,
Oh.
and I did multiple, for age groups, and it was just lovely. They enjoyed it so much, and they enjoyed learning about them.
Oh, they're so cute.
They're lovely. Mhm.
And then this is RT. Is this RT right here, or is that a different one?
The one on his own, that's Eros. The
Arrow.
ones that
Okay.
the ones that all the ladies spit at. I can
Oh, poor guy. He's so
I
cute.
can't imagine spitting at a face like that, but they do. And
Oh.
he, he is really the largest of all the alpacas.
Oh.
He weighs about 180, 190,
Oh,
so he's
wow.
actually very tall. And his fiber is a little bit coarser, but
Oh.
it's still beautiful. But I use it for when I've had it taken it to the mill. I do use his fiber for bulky, chunky.
Mm-hmm.
And the other two, Apollo and RT, in the other picture, they're on their way to an alpaca party.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, how does the alpaca parties work?
They work well. I stopped doing them because of COVID.
Yeah.
But recently I did start them up again, and we do social distancing. We, I've done 2 of them, one for a wedding and one for a 2-year-old birthday party. Delightful, delightful. And we did social distancing with masks, and I have alpaca, a corral a portable corral, so that we don't get too close. So but the joy that they bring to people is amazing. They break
They
the
really,
ice. They're just lovely. Yeah.
and they're so calm when you meet them in person.
Yeah.
They were
Mhm.
just very relaxed and chill. So it was very,
In
very
fact,
nice.
they are that way, that they're very good animals to have around special needs children as well.
Mm.
Special needs program last year, and oh my goodness, it was fabulous. It just
Oh,
calmed the children down. They were so interested in it, and the thing about them is you can't scream. That there's something about them that, like you said, calms them down. It calms you down.
hmm.
And if ever I've been having a bit of a rough day, all I need to do is go into the barn, and you just all of a sudden just feel the stress of the day just melts right off. And everybody who interacts with alpacas, they feel the same way. They're
Oh,
just so they make you not do jerky movements.
hmm.
If I tend to talk with my hands quite a bit,
Yes,
but if I'm around the alpacas, I have to keep my hands pretty much down to my side.
right,
Even though they know me, they don't like me to approach them quickly.
right. Just
Linda,
very.
we have a question from
Yes,
Victoria.
yes.
She says, I'm curious about their neck. So beautifully long. Is there a reason in the natural world that the long neck serves a purpose?
Hmm.
That's a really good question, Victoria, as well. The long neck is basically for the ease of reaching food that may not be accessible to, if they had a shorter neck. Because they technically are such high altitude animals, their food source would be quite scarce. And I would imagine that would, there might be other reasons as far as digestion goes as well. But I noticed all my trees, if the grass is kind of going away, as it is right now, it's sort of turning more brown. All the trees, and they know which ones are poisonous and which ones are not. They have an instinctive nature to that. They look like little mushrooms. The bottoms are all sort of flat, and they reach up really high with their necks to reach the green foliage off the tree. So I would imagine, Victoria, that it's really about their food source and getting food that most other animals probably couldn't reach. And kind of like the llama and the camel would be the same. But I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure there are more reasons, but that's what I do know.
And that's Apollo, maybe.
That's Apollo. Oh no, that one was actually Incan.
Oh, Incan.
I call him Incan. He's the one that wants to take Apollo's place,
Oh.
and he's a shorter alpaca. He's very stocky. He comes from a very good bloodline, and his fiber has the finest of all the fiber of all the animals. And he's the one that pees when we shear him.
He's like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
So who is it?
This is Baby Sky.
Oh, this is Sky.
Baby Sky with her mom, Chanel. Chanel is the one that tossed me into the hay trough.
Oh.
And so, but that's her little baby who was born on the 8th of March of 2020.
Wow.
And because she was, it was still fairly cool, I put a little jacket on her, which is specifically made for alpacas and llamas, but they also can be used for dogs as well.
Oh, she's so cute.
And she's a beautiful mother. Oh my goodness. She's still nursing her baby even tonight.
Really?
Oh yeah. Sky does eat hay, orchard alfalfa, but she can't eat with the females. They won't let her eat with them. So because of the hierarchy, so I feed Sky. I actually hand feed Sky. She's just so sweet. She's a little timid still of me. So I'm trying to without intimidating her, I'm trying to let her know she can trust me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And that looks like
Valentino.
Oh, Valentino.
We have one quick question from Angela Moore. I'd like to know how long the gestation period is and what a baby alpaca weighs at birth.
Good question.
Yes, great question. The alpaca, when they're born, the gestation period is about 340 days to 350, or almost a full year.
Wow.
And so, and they literally are born when they're ready. They just know. You can't induce them. They just are born when they're ready. This little one is baby Valentino because he was conceived on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Again, Apollo did his typical sneaking act and he snuck under Actually, I left the gate open by mistake, and so in a sense, that was my fault. But he's beautiful, and he is a direct brother of Sky in both mother and father. But look at that. Apollo is brown. His mother, Apollo's mother, was jet black, and Apollo has a black face and brown. He has a baby who is brown and a direct baby who was white. So they come in 16 natural colors and then 8 sort of shades of the natural colors.
That's so
they're very beautiful. There's Apollo.
Okay, so it's blackface and
yeah, he looks pregnant in that picture.
He ate Linda.
I know he eats women.
The tail is so interesting in this picture. It looks. I don't know why I thought their tail was like this little like a little nub, but it actually.
Oh yeah, it's very useful. I've noticed when the weather is very hot, they, especially the males, they put their tail up, not all the way, but they lift it away from their body to cool down their body, and then they also keep away the flies as well.
Right. Oh.
That's Chanel. She's the mom. She's the tosser.
So soft. Here, I'll try to. And that's everybody. And here's an introduction to the dogs.
Okay.
And could you tell us? Oh, there's that. Here, I'll get to the dog. So, can you tell us a little bit about these dogs?
Yes, they are fabulous. They're not very well known. They are in this country. They are mostly well, they're from Italy. They're cousin to the Pyrenees. We mostly hear of the Great Pyrenees. That they're just as beautiful. They're beautiful dogs, Pyrenees and the and the Maremas. And the Maremas are from central Italy, and they have a very, very long Italian name. If you go to the Sheepdog Club of America .com, you can learn everything you'd ever want to know about Maremas. But just briefly to tell you, they the one that's on the back of the tractor, he was born here, and the other one is one of the puppies from another farm, and that's my daughter holding the little puppy. And it is just they're the most greatest companions to the alpacas, and they will not let anything. And this is the father, Leo.
Okay.
Right by himself, and that's Adelina, the mom.
Wow.
They look after their charge. Whatever they are taught to look after, they will look after them with their life, and nothing will ever get even close to.
I think Michelle and Angela and I can all attest to that.
Yes.
Yeah. You weren't able to get close to they look so cuddly and friendly.
They do.
You couldn't even get near the fence.
No, they're like back off.
So adorable, but yet they let you know, no, you're not coming even within. I mean, we couldn't even come. How close did we try to get? It wasn't even that close.
It wasn't even maybe like 10 feet, and they're like,
I know,
or more. I don't know. They saw us and they're like, no. Don't even think about it.
They do a wonderful job, and I never worry about the alpacas. They, these are the two sons. They had two sons, and they are just the most beautiful companions of the alpacas. But when they're puppies, they tend to play with the alpacas a little bit. So I had to teach them not to play with them. They didn't hurt them. They would play. Right. And they are just great companions and guardians of the alpacas. We've had a couple of chickens by mistake get in there, and there's nothing left. Nothing left. And there was I'm trying to remember what animal it was. A cougar. Somewhere out Midwest, there was I think it was a cougar. Anyway, whatever animal it was killing livestock. And all the farmers were just beside themselves for losing dozens and dozens of animals to these predators. But one farm had Maremas, and they did not lose one single animal.
Really?
Oh, and if you want a lovely movie that's child friendly, and it's a true story, you can rent it off. I guess you can rent it anywhere really, but it's called Oddball. Oddball. It's the story of a Maremma that guarded was a guard dog for chickens. And it was defending a penguin colony in the off an island of South Australia. So if you rent the movie Oddball, it is the most endearing story that I can watch over and over again. And like I said, it's child friendly, which is kind of unusual nowadays, but it's it's very nice. That's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, they're beautiful dogs.
No, they are. But during World War, just to give you an idea, they originally were bred. They're a 2,000-year-old breed, and they're written about in Roman literature, and there are pictures of them, and they have not altered in their breed for 2,000 years, and they during World War II, when the Germans were crossing Italy, they could not get through central Italy because of the Maremmas. They would attack the soldiers. Unfortunately, a lot of them were shot because of, they had to cross, but they'd come back again. But what they do is they stand in the middle of a sheep herd, and they often have collars with spikes around them, so that the wolves wouldn't, if they had tried to attack his neck, they would get injured. But they stay in the center of the sheep fold. Is it a sheep fold or a sheep herd? Anyway, a group of sheep. And the Maremmas would then, because they look like sheep, they would duck out and they would attack or chase any kind of predator away. But you never knew the animal. You'd have to have, we have 4 of them, and you would have to have more than one to make them.
Right. More of a. And is that Sky now? No, that's not.
That is RT. That is
RT. Okay.
Yes, Royal Temptation. Much like horses, they have very unusual names.
He's so cute. And then these are just examples of your products, right?
Yes, that's the stress ball that I make out of alpaca fiber.
And then we have the dryer balls.
The kitty toy. It comes with a bell inside, and the cats love it. The cat comes in a package of 3, and then the alpaca dryer balls come in a package of 4. And I also sell them at Farmview Market in Madison. I have a stand there, and also online on my website. But they're just and I also okay.
Here we go back.
No, I finished it.
Sorry.
This is the amendment I sell it. I sell it in packages of 5 pounds, and it's like I said, registered with the Georgia Department of Agriculture. Beautiful product, and it looks like there's a moth in the one in my hand, but it's not. It's a piece of hay. Look closely and think, what is that? But anyway, it's a great product and great for your gardens, as we talked about.
And I had to end with these cute bags.
This is an example of a mistake gone right. When I first began my business, I ordered, because I love the manure as well, I ordered 5,000 burlap bags that I was going to put 25 pounds of alpaca manure with amended with different microbes in it. It's a beautiful formula. But I found out, unbeknownst to me, 5,000 bags later, that when the alpaca manure dries, it would go through the holes of the burlap. So you would end up with a nice pile of dried alpaca manure outside the bag. And so I thought, okay, well, that's not going to be a very good product to ship it in. You start off with 25 pounds and arrive with about 15 pounds inside. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do with 5,000 bags? And so I had this industrial sewing machine that it's actually a bag closing machine. That's why the lines were a little bit wonky sometimes. It's a very heavy machine that is handheld, and it was going to close all my 5,000 bags. But instead, I decided to make tote bags out of them. And they are so durable that I call them market totes. And so far, I've sold about 1,000.
That's so great.
I got
5,000?
4,000 more.
That's so great. Well, thank you. I'm going to actually open the floor to everybody to see if we have any questions. And if you'd like, you can unmute yourself, or if we have any